We're absolutely convinced Detroit residents have all the talent they need, but many don't have access to all the opportunities they need to thrive. You asked me, who am I? How do I define myself? That identity is definitely what determines what I decide to do and what I decide not to do. I really believe all of us have purpose, and that purpose is multifaceted. A big part of that purpose, though, I'm convinced, is being a blessing to people experiencing suffering.
Because sometimes you just have to take the step forward, even if you don't really know where it's going.
How many of us are really prepared for the journey ahead and the sacrifice? How many of us are willing to do it again?
So this is the Dillon England Show. Welcome to the podcast. I don't know how it's blown up on YouTube. It just has. So that's exciting. And this is what we do. We just chat and we learn about people. We learn about who you are and what makes you tick. And I think, was it Dave Feidner?
Yes, he connected us.
So Dave came on the show.
Okay.
He's been on the podcast, and Dave's an amazing person, amazing
Absolutely.
connector, connected me with you and met you. I think once you meet Chris, you don't forget.
Okay.
You just have that brand.
Well, I hope his brand of a connector, his skills aren't riding on my skills, because that might lower his brand. But
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, we only met each other like once at dinner, which that was crazy.
The same day that we talked via phone, neither of us knew we were going to have dinner together that night.
No clue. Yeah.
To
You took
another
a
mutual
FaceTime.
friend.
Yeah, John. Shout out John Glahn, entrepreneur on Roll Call. The Roll Call is the name of his podcast.
Yes.
Shout out John.
You the man, John. John Glahn. He and
John
I went to
Glahn.
high school together.
Yeah. Did you? Oh, you did.
Yes,
I
same
remember you
year.
talking about that.
Very small town, northern Indiana.
Indiana. That's right.
Yep.
Small world. And now you're doing a lot in the nonprofit space, a lot in the raising capital space. You have so much going on. The first question I like to ask guys sometimes, like, who are you? What do you got going on in the world right now? Who's Chris?
I define myself a number of ways. So I'm a dad of two amazing sons. I'm a husband of a beautiful Romanian woman who was born in Romania. I am a Detroiter, although that's about to change. So I've been in Detroit 19 years, and I'm moving to North Carolina. And then I would say most important to me is I am a follower of Jesus. So I follow this Jewish construction worker who was brutally murdered about 2,000 years ago and came back to life. That's my jam.
That's awesome. Where did your faith? I had no idea. That's crazy.
Yeah.
When did that faith walk kind of start for you?
So that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
But kind of the shorter version of the story, born and raised in a very small town, northern Indiana. Yeah. And my parents would take my sister and I to church service maybe once a month because they felt like it was the right thing to do. Sure. I can't recall them talking about God in the home or, in the family. But for whatever reason, I was this really passionate spiritual kid about the person of Jesus in particular. So much so that in 8th grade, other kids in school, and maybe John Glahn himself might have called me Lambert the Jesus freak, because I was the kid who was trying to convert everybody to Christianity.
Sounds like John.
And I wasn't very successful at it.
Huh.
And then right before I turned 16, I hit a bit of a growth spurt, not as tall as you became, but I became a little bit of a big fish in a small pond when it came to athletics. Yeah. And I started looking around at my buddies who weren't following God, and I realized they were having a lot more fun in life than me and my dorky little youth group. So I said, goodbye, Jesus. Really, I gave him the middle finger. Said, I don't want anything to do with this, SHIT or whatever. And for the next 6 years of my life, I did whatever I wanted to do, whenever I wanted to do it, whatever I thought was going to make me the most happy. And what that really meant was, to a 16-year-old kid, 17, 18, 19, drugs, alcohol, girls, sports, money, trying to find who I was.
As they say, yeah.
Right. And where this climactic event took place that turned me into the guy that I am today, I was living in Australia, studying overseas for 6 months, my junior year of college. And while I was there, I met a couple guys over there, became very close friends of mine. They happened to be Jesus followers, but they were pretty fun guys that could go out to a bar, have a couple drinks, and go home. Meanwhile, I'd stay out doing the things they weren't doing. They kept trying to get me to come to their youth group, and I said, that's not going to happen. Not youth group, I'm sorry, to their church service. And I said, that's not going to happen. I didn't come to Australia to meet with God. And they were relentless but patient, and I think it took them maybe 2 months, 3 months. Finally, I said, okay, I'll go. I went to this little church service. It was okay. I went back a second time. I went back a third time. The third time I went, this guy got up on the stage. He told this story that in many ways outlined my life choices. And as he was wrapping it up, I actually heard God speak to me for the first time in my life. And it was not an audible voice, but it was more clear than anything I'd ever heard another human say. And I remember exactly what I did. I got down on my knees. I went to the front of the building because they were having like this altar call type of thing, or a come to Jesus, moment. And I went up there. I got down on my knees. I looked up. I said, God, from this moment forward, I'm going to stop doing whatever you want me to stop doing, and I'm going to start doing whatever you want me to start doing. So illegal drugs and drunkenness kind of exited my life pretty quick. But what I started doing was a lot more inspiring than just what I stopped doing. So prior to this experience, I loved my parents, my sister, my fraternity brothers, the girl at the time I thought I was going to marry, but I couldn't care less about the other people outside of my little bubble, right? I wasn't like running people down or a bully, but I just had no interest in people outside of my circle. Immediately after this experience, I had this very deep sense of curiosity about people in general and just wanted to connect with others. And so I'll just kind of pause there because that was a lot and see where you want to go.
Well, first of all, master of storytelling, because the segue into what you're doing now is probably what you're about to share next, right?
Well, I mean, I can go wherever you want.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it. So faith is a massive part in your life.
Yes.
So coming from like, I'm a Christian, very clear on the show. Like that's what people don't like about our show. Because I'm talk about Jesus a ton.
Okay. And I actually don't call myself a Christian. I call myself a Jesus follower.
Yeah, what's the reason?
A lot of reasons, right? So one, the word Christian was only used 3 times in the Bible, and it was actually a derogatory term. 2, the
meaning of it.
What a Christian is it varies widely in the United States, and in some contexts, it's largely tied to political beliefs. Yeah. And I'm about Jesus, man.
At the end of the day.
Every day, all day.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I definitely think the word, like we were just talking about this at a small group in our church house. Some people will say that I'm Christian is different than saying I'm a Christian, is different than saying like, now maybe I'm a Jesus follower, for example.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'm good with all those. But for me,
you're very clear.
I'm a Jesus follower, or follower of Jesus, follower of the way, you name it.
That's awesome. Yeah. Because I think when people say I'm Christian, that's their version of saying I'm religious.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I've heard a lot. Like, I'm Christian.
Sure.
And they're like, they believe God is real. It's kind of their extent of what they believe. Okay. And then I'm a Christian, from my point of view, would be like someone who believes that Jesus is God that died for our sins and we need him to save us. When without him, we're screwed. Like, that's kind of, my definition of that. And then, but dude, your passion, that's great. Like, I've never had a guest just come in here and just like identify as that. So that's awesome, man.
Yeah. It's my motivation and
doing what you're doing now.
Well, what I'm doing now is not a religious organization.
Right.
This is the 3rd nonprofit that I've started. And the one that I started before this, also not a religious organization or even a faith-based organization. Right. But the reason you asked me, who am I? How do I define myself? That identity is definitely what determines what I decide to do and what I decide not to do. And if I decide to do something, that also leads me to say I'm all in on it.
Right. Well, let's jump back into your story, because you said you were in Australia.
Yes.
You went to church. You started getting back and said, Jesus, I'm going to follow you. And then...
Okay, so then I moved back to Indiana University for my senior year of college. Now, before I left Indiana University, there wasn't a single Jesus follower or Christian in this entire fraternity that I lived in of 180 guys. Nobody was about that life, right? Before I got back, and this had nothing to do with me, my 3 best friends in the fraternity had also had these crazy encounters with God, and so did my drug dealer, who was an atheist before I left. And I got back, and they looked at me. They said, "Whoa, Lambert, what the heck happened to you?" I said, "What the heck happened to you guys?" And we all found out that we had these encounters with God. So we got this Bible study going in the frat.
Even your former drug dealer.
Yes.
That's great, dude.
Who I remember one night I was talking to him while I was partaking in his product. And even though I wasn't following Jesus, I felt the need to talk to him about God and how God was real. I'd never seen this guy get more angry in his entire life. And he said, "Don't ever bring up that bleepity bleep ever again." And I didn't, right? Until I found out he'd become a Jesus follower. So we got this Bible study in the fraternity. We started leading guys to faith pretty significantly and regularly. And I was getting ready to go to law school and become a real estate developer because my driving desire to pursue that lifestyle was I wanted to have all the money I wanted in the world to do what I wanted when I wanted. And I thought that was really going to bring me
goal, right?
A lot of joy. And now that I'd had this paradigm shift, I no longer had that motivation. And my driving motivation was I want to help people experience what I've experienced, right? And so I felt like God was calling me to be a pastor. So I canceled law school. I moved out west to a seminary in Los Angeles. It was there I met the woman who became my wife. And while we were there, we felt called to move to Detroit to start a church. And before we did that, we finished seminary, and then we did what most people do, and we moved to Africa for 9 months. I lived in a mud hut in a Muslim village with no running water in Liberia. And that experience in Liberia drastically changed the way I look at the world, the way I look at myself and others, and most importantly, the way I looked at that Jewish construction worker I told you about, because I began to realize as I was living in a village with no running water and working alongside people who had significant lack of access to opportunities, that as I would reread the scriptures or really into the gospel accounts, I began to realize Jesus spent the majority of his time with people who were the most marginalized and oppressed, and that he was trying to get his followers to do likewise. And I'll stop preaching after this, but not that we all need to move into a mud hut or even into the hood, but I became convinced that we're here on this earth largely to be a blessing to people experiencing suffering in its many forms. And I think all of us listening right now can identify very quickly proximate suffering. For some of us, it's right in our own bodies, minds, souls, finances, families, neighbors. For others of us, it's people that we know that we've come in contact with across the world, or you name it. But I really believe all of us have purpose, and that purpose is multifaceted. A big part of that purpose, though, I'm convinced, is being a blessing to people experiencing suffering.
So where did you go after Africa? Did you come back to Detroit?
We came to Detroit for the first time.
First time, okay.
My wife grew up here. She was born in Romania. Then she moved to Detroit. Now, she didn't want to move back. I didn't want to move to Detroit. We were going to live in LA forever. We love it out there. But the calling was so clear, we said, well, that's what we're going to do, right? And so we did that. And we did fall in love with this city, right? I've been here 19 years. I mentioned earlier I'm going to be moving now, but that season has been remarkable. And we did start a church, and I thought I was going to do that for the rest of my life. I thought that was the call. And it was until it wasn't. So we started a church in 2007. And then in 2010, I got this vision to start a nonprofit called Life Remodeled, which does very large-scale neighborhood revitalization in the city of Detroit. And I thought I was just going to get that started and find somebody else to run it.
Pass it off, yeah.
And I thought that was the plan. But while carrying out the work, I realized I really enjoy this, and I'm good at it, and it's very interesting. And so I was leading both the church and the nonprofit for 4 years. Both grew very rapidly. It became very clear I needed to go one way or the other. I felt strongly about the nonprofit route. And it goes a lot to what I was talking about in my experience in Africa, right? Where I was making more impact in that context than in the pastoral context. And it was just a time for a new season. And so I went all in on that. Life Remodeled, made plenty
like 2012, 2013, somewhere in there.
2014 was my last year of pastoring in an official capacity. I went all in on the nonprofit thing, made a lot of mistakes. And then somebody handed me a book that was one of the most transformative books I've ever read, called Traction by Gino Wickman in 2014. And that's what's going to lead into, the clarity around the work that I do today. So I read that book. And as a business major, an entrepreneur who'd done a few business things, I immediately ate this context up and I said, we are going to do this immediately. But my second thought was I need to find out who translated these principles into the nonprofit sector because the nuances are so significant. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between businesses and nonprofits, but there are many nuances. Sure. And turns out nobody had done that. And so we got to a place where I wanted to hire an EOS implementer. I met with someone who was amazing, and he was ready to work with us, and he quoted us a price. And it was a very fair price for a market value service, but I looked at him like he was from another universe. Right. Because here I was operating as a nonprofit leader very much with a scarcity mentality, and I had no idea how valuable this resource really was, and I thought there's no way I could convince a donor to pay for this.
Right.
And I'll figure it out. We'll self-implement, which, by the way, 90% of people who implement EOS through the book Traction do it by self-implementing, which is crazy. So I self-implemented, we self-implemented, we grew very rapidly. Mm-hmm. But as we utilized these tools that are in this book, these resources, we then began to realize how valuable they were. And we said, where would we be if we had a professional implementer? We were able to inspire a remarkable implementer named Tip Quilter, who since has left EOS, to implement with us, and we grew leaps and bounds. And Tip, he was a cowboy. He colored outside the lines. And he needed to with us because a lot of our staff were having significant issues with the business language and the rigidity of the EOS system, which wasn't designed for nonprofits. Right. It's a phenomenal system for for-profit companies that are small. And so Tip allowed us to change things, and we did. And in the process, I literally tried to convince, and I am not exaggerating, over 100 nonprofits to implement EOS. Dang. Not one took me up on it. And I was heartbroken because the reason I had such depth of relationships with nonprofits is the work that I used to do with Life Remodeled. Yeah. We would repurpose large vacant school buildings. And you got to think like Harry Potter school here, right?
Yeah. If we could pause really quick. So Life Remodeled, you that's a big part of your life.
It's a big part.
And we just kind of really quickly glazed over to what you're really now.
It was a blip, but it was 15 years of my life.
Yeah. So let's pause on the EOS to what you're doing now.
Yes.
Because I know it's important and we'll get there. But I think the growth of Life Remodeled is a very big part of where you're at now.
It has everything to do with what I'm doing.
At its core, what is Life Remodeled? And if you wouldn't mind sharing some credibility building tips. So how big you get it. Okay. Who is the business side of you? Sure. And then, because I think that's going to give way more credibility to the back end of the conversation of what we're about to do.
Yeah. Well, let me start off with why Life Remodeled exists. Yeah. And I'm no longer the CEO, but the why has remained the same. It is because we're absolutely convinced Detroit residents have all the talent they need, but many don't have access to all the opportunities they need to thrive. Mm-hmm. And so what Life Remodeled does in response to that reality is we repurpose large vacant school buildings in the city of Detroit into what we call one-stop hubs of opportunity for community thriving. We then fill these buildings with the best and brightest nonprofit organizations that are moving the needle in the specific ways the community has requested. So that's typically community members, many want more access to higher quality healthcare, better educational opportunities for youth, and real workforce development initiatives that lead to sustainable, livable wage jobs. Arts and culture is sometimes a fourth piece involved in our work as well, but the first three are the big three. And so we first listen to the community, We acquire the building, we repurpose it, millions and millions and millions of dollars go into these buildings, which we raised through philanthropy, right, through donations. Yeah. We then find the best and brightest nonprofits that do what the community wants or creates the access to what the community is looking for. And we charge them a lease rate that is equivalent to the cost of operations of the building. So we don't make any profit off of the leases, which means they're getting a rate they can't get anywhere else in the entire city. But they're also located in the heart of communities because these schools were built in the center of neighborhoods. In the
right areas, right.
And they're walkable.
Yep.
And for our Detroit listeners, we know we have the worst public transportation for a major city in America. Because that was very much by design, right? The city was built on the auto, and that didn't work
help
as well
the sales of the auto. Yeah,
putting trains and buses and you name it. So anyway, that is the work of Life Remodeled. Just to give you a little idea of some of the outputs, right? We had this project and still do called the 6-Day Project, where we mobilize anywhere from 5,000 to 12,000 volunteers over a 6-day time period every year. Pre-COVID, it was 10,000 to 12,000. Post-COVID, volunteerism's gone way down. So we mobilize about 5,000 to 6,000.
Still.
It's significant. Yeah. And we beautify several hundred blocks around whatever school building we're focused on. We have boarded up thousands of houses. We have removed blight on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of blocks. In a 10-year period, basically, I raised about $55 million of investment. And that was when we grew from 2014 to 2024. So you'll notice I mentioned we implemented this EOS in 2014. That's when we really turned the corner. That's when we started achieving significant measurable output. But that's output. Outcomes or impact is what changes in the surrounding community as a result of those outputs. And the first vacant school building that we repurposed, because for a while we would remodel existing high schools, but the first vacant school building we repurposed was in 2017. In the year 2023, Gallup research, which I'm assuming you've heard of Gallup, came into Detroit. They were doing a study where they spoke with Detroiters from every neighborhood across the city, and they were measuring Detroit residents' perception of their ability to thrive based on the specific neighborhood they lived in. Now, I didn't even know this study was going on until it was complete. Long story short, the results of the study showed that our neighborhood around that building scored number 2 in the entire city. And the Detroit Regional Chamber and many others were shocked. I was shocked by those results because many had said there's been no significant infrastructure investment in this neighborhood in decades.
Why is the perception so high?
Except for this project, right? And then the following year in 2024, the police chief called and he said, you've got to see this. The crime rates in your neighborhood are the lowest in the entire city. And when we first opened our doors in 2017, they were in the top 10 highest. And so what I've come to believe, there are many ways to lower crime, and I do want to give credit to our fantastic police force, and especially their neighborhood policing, relationship development. However, I'm convinced the most effective way to reduce crime is to create access to better opportunities.
Sure.
And that is the work that not only we did, but we did that and continue to do that in collaboration with dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of other nonprofits. Which brings me to why it was so important for me to inspire these nonprofits to implement EOS. Because if they could perform at their highest capacity, they would serve more people more effectively and have more fun doing it. And everyone wins. And when I failed to convince them, I've never had a batting average of 0.000 in my life. And, but what I did was I listened. Why were they saying no? And the answers, there were really 2 categories over and over again. Number one, it was the price. It was outside of their mindset. And that's exactly how I reacted when I was quoted a price for an implementer, right? The second reason was the business language. Most of us who lead nonprofits don't come from thriving for-profit companies. Now, I had a great business experience degree at Indiana University and did some entrepreneurial things. So I love business language, right? But most nonprofit leaders aren't familiar with it, and so they don't find that it's for them. It doesn't speak their context.
And maybe even a little intimidating, and you have to learn a bunch of new stuff, and it's just not even helpful.
Well, and even when you look at systems like a business operating system, for our listeners who aren't familiar with what a business operating system is, it's not a software, but it's everything from how we attract talent, retain talent,
develop talent. It's a way of thinking and way of doing things in a business.
Strategic planning, vision, execution. But at the center of most business operating systems is profit. That is the goal. Well, we are non-profits. Yeah. Although no money, no mission, that is not our focus. And so the very goal of business success is entirely different than the goal of the social sector.
So what did that like? So what's the next step? What that leads you to do, and where are you at now with that whole thing?
It led me to say, I need to do something about this.
Yeah.
And that is when I was inspired to write the book Next Level Nonprofit, which translates the principles of various business operating systems, not just EOS. And EOS wasn't the first system out there. There are many, and they are all great. My favorite system is actually Pinnacle Business Guides, which is a group that I've had the pleasure of getting to know really well. But all the systems are remarkable, and yet none of them were created for nonprofits. And so we utilized our experience with our own work and with other organizations, and we translated these principles into the sector in a way that can be understood and applied. And so the book became something that took off even quicker than I imagined. Originally, I thought this was just going to be a program of Life Remodeled and really more Detroit-based, and it grew around the country. And then all of a sudden, we started coaching organizations, and the desire for our coaching took off around the country, and people were confused in other cities. Wait, what is Life Remodeled? What does that have to do with Next Level Nonprofit? And so I was at a fork in the road, just like I was when I was a pastor of a church. And I realized I need to go one direction or the other. And I realized that this direction of helping nonprofits scale their impact was exactly where I was for this season of my life. And I needed to go all in on that.
And that's what you're doing now?
That's what I'm doing. And it's risky. If you would have asked me 4 or 5 years ago if I had another startup in me, I would have said, hell no, because I know what that means and what that takes. And yet I could not say no to this. Yeah. It was like, I got to be careful how I say this, right? Because I know nothing about being pregnant and the difficulties of childbirth, all right? But it was almost like I was pregnant with a vision.
And you had to deliver
that you had to deliver, and you wanted to, and you were willing to suffer any and every amount of pain to
get it here.
But what women do in childbirth is far harder than starting a nonprofit or a business. So I want to be clear about that.
For the record.
All analogies have their limit. All right?
Yeah, for the record.
Mad respect, ladies. Mad respect.
Mad respect. I give my wife crap all. So my wife's had 2 kids, both natural deliveries, because she's terrified of needles. Yes. It's not like, I'm better. She just doesn't want to do it getting epidural because she's terrified. So she chooses willingly to go through it naturally, which is
looks painful.
I'm going to be honest with you. It's not fun for us either. And she gets mad at me when I say that. But wait, let me hear me out. Hear me out. And she agrees with me.
I think I can empathize with your wife right now.
No. She agrees with me. Okay. Because like watching the person you love more than anything go through that pain is just like the worst. Now again, it's nowhere near the pain she's going through. She asked me, she's like, do you like delivery? Do you like the? I'm like, no, it's not fun. If it was fun, she would be like, I would be weird.
I think that the ladies had it harder than we did.
Oh, for sure.
Okay,
I'm not comparing.
I'll give you my experience, and we shouldn't go this off topic, but maybe that's what we do.
Yeah, that's fine
on this show. So
that's fine.
Both of my sons had their umbilical cords wrapped around their necks and were breached, and so a C-section was required. And I'm going to just give you a tip, for all the listeners out there. I do not recommend watching a C-section.
Did you watch?
I watched it.
Both? Or just the first and never
one
again?
Is where I watched it all. because I couldn't even move my eyes away. And then when it
Terrifying.
came for this next one, it looks like they're just hacking away at flesh and muscle, and then they cauterize it. They're burning flesh. So it's a 4D experience.
They let you watch it?
I even got my camera out.
No.
And then at some point, one of the doctors said, "You need to put that away." I said, "Oh, okay." But I just was so traumatized that I
You couldn't
really
look
couldn't
away.
even move or
Yeah.
look away.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, what my wife endured was far
Oh, that's awful.
more significant of a sacrifice than what I did. So
Our
anyway,
midwife passed out.
yeah, really,
Yeah, last our second kid. It was a tub birth. We weren't planning for that.
okay,
But shout out U of M, Women's Hospital,
yes,
the best.
except for that midwife,
We've loved, except for the midwife.
yeah, which
She
we'll
still
leave
was the
unnamed.
best. She caught the baby. So it was a water birth, which we weren't expecting. It was just kind of like here. And so Anna was laboring in the tub and she just started pushing and it was like, okay, I guess we're doing this thing. So she birthed a baby in the tub, in the water. And I'm freaking out. Like, how's it going to breathe? Like, I'm not freaking out loud. In my head was the
It's
crazy.
okay if you were freaking out loud.
No, I was calm for my wife. I was holding her hand.
This
you
is
know,
a safe space here.
yeah, I was holding her hand, whatever, and trying to be there for her and
Yeah.
as best I can. And inside, I'm like,
chivalrous.
how is, doing what I can,
Yeah.
And then the baby gets born. They take him, like, lift him above the water, pat his back. He's not breathing. Pat his back, and then he coughs up water, and then the first scream. Dude, that first scream is just like, I cry. It's incredible. Something happens to where I need to go get a towel or something. So we're in this, like, bathroom area in the hospital room. I walk out of the room, and the midwife that just caught the baby was passed out in the chair, white as a ghost, like 3 people around her fanning her.
Okay.
And so I don't know if she was training. I don't think she was ready for the water birth either, because that was not part of the birth plan.
I mean, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like she wasn't prepared.
Yeah, I think she was trainee. I think she was actually
Going back to entrepreneurism.
yeah, sorry. Anyway, so our wife pat out.
How many of us are really prepared for the journey ahead
What a
and the
segue.
sacrifice?
What a segue. Yeah.
And
And if you had a mentor and we're never prepared.
well, or then when you've done it,
Yeah.
how many of us are willing to do it again? Right? And I wasn't until I was.
Back to the story.
Well, it goes back to I live my life very much from a sense of calling. When I was younger, I used to just take on any and every challenge. I was an adrenaline junkie, jumped out of planes and all kinds of crazy stuff and lived for the adrenaline. As I've gotten older, that didn't satisfy me. Really, the only things that satisfy me are things that are about loving God, loving people, and meaning and purpose. And so I pick my adventures very wisely, or so I like to hope, very intentionally. And when I saw clearly, all right, this needs to happen, I didn't know how it was going to all work out. And how many of us who have an idea know how it's all going to work out? None. We may think we know, but it's always different than what we envision.
When did you first think that you wanted to write the book? Like when like why write a book?
I thought about writing the book from the moment I found out there wasn't one, and that was that was 2014. I thought about it,
Yeah.
and I do love to write, but I wasn't compelled to write. And when I was compelled to write, and this was the end of 2022, I wrote that book in about 45 days.
Wow.
I would stay up late through the night, and I wasn't tired. I mean, I was getting more and more energy as the hours went on. And it was just, again, it was like this birthing process that was beautiful and hard. Then shipped it off to the editor, and that was a whole nother thing. Writing a book is crazy, dude.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Because I've heard there's like a couple different ways you can do it. Like you can, like, if you have maybe like a concept, but you don't have the time to like flesh it out, you could hire a ghostwriter
Sure.
to help flesh out your concept, or you can write the bulk, then have an editor make it readable.
Yes.
Right? If I'm understanding
There's
correctly.
a lot of ways to write a book.
Then it's like, and then you have to get it approved and get it distributed and then get it made. And did you know what you were jumping into when you first started writing the book?
No.
Yeah.
I did not, and I'm glad I did what I did, and I'm actually just completed my second book a few weeks ago.
That's awesome. Congrats. Man.
And I have about 5 or 6 more books in my head that I'm planning to write at some point, but I don't start writing until, again, it is clear this book needs to come out, and it needs to come out at this time. And so even though the book I just finished, I didn't start writing that until it was really something I couldn't avoid.
That's awesome, man. And so that's what you're doing now. Right now is you're helping nonprofits.
Yes, we coach nonprofits in 3 countries, soon to be all over the entire world. We're in 17 states, and we work with executive leadership teams over a period of 7 full days in year 1, and then it's 5 full days every year after that, and then we coach them in between these sessions. But the best way I could describe what this is in simple terms is it's a marriage between strategic planning and strategic execution, built on a foundation of the most important component of all, which is right people, right seats.
Yeah.
I say that because there are about 1.8 million nonprofits in the United States.
Wow.
For those that are above $1 million a year in revenue, the vast majority of them have undertaken significant time and resources to create meaningful strategic plans in hopes of maximizing their impact. Sure. Unfortunately, 90% of strategic plans fail to be implemented successfully. And I believe that is because traditional strategic planning only focuses on creating the plan. In rare cases, it focuses on strategic execution, but it almost never focuses on the most important component of all, which is who, right? Who is always more important than how, as Dan Sullivan would say. The right who's in the right seats, all rowing the same direction. And this is true in every type of organization, a business, a nonprofit, government, a church, a school, you name it.
Sports team.
Sports teams.
Yeah, anything.
All right, if we want to talk sports,
Okay.
I'm an Indiana Hoosier, and my football team just won our first football championship in history. And I know if you'll let me go there, I'll briefly go there.
I'll tee it up.
Because it ties in so well to what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm in. Let's do it.
If someone doesn't know the IU story, they need to know this. Before the start of this last season, we were literally the losingest football team in college football history. We were the first one to hit 700 losses. All right. Our team didn't have a single 5-star recruit. If you don't know what a 5-star is, that's basically the great players coming out of high school. We didn't have one, and we only had a few 4-stars. Our coach had only been at Indiana University for 2 years. Before he got to IU, nobody knew who in the world this guy was. He coached at a little bitty school out east, okay, that no one had ever played against. No D1 school knew of, really, all right? Long story short, we not only won the championship this year, we won every single game. No one has been 16-0 in the last century. It wasn't until the late 1800s was the last time a team went 16-0. Now, there have been a few teams that have gone undefeated, but not play 16 games, right? We went 16-0, blew out the best teams in the country, blew out Alabama, blew out Oregon. And if you ask the coach, Coach Signetti is his name, reporters would ask him after every single game, how in the world are you doing this? How are you winning? And how are you winning by such significant margins? His answer is the same almost every time. He says, I got the right people in the right seats, and they're all going the same direction. And that comes from Jim Collins, for those of us who know that reference, right? Get the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, right? But, I mean, Signetti gets it. In the world of college football right now, most people who are into the sport think that it's all about the money that we can throw at players, because players can make
sets,
millions
talent,
of dollars, and the transfer portal, right? And everybody's going after the most talented players that look talented. Well, Indiana found team players who were willing to do the right things right, and to say, we are going to believe in this vision, we're going to implement, we're going to execute it. And that principle translates into a family, into a business, into a faith-based institution, into a nonprofit. And that ultimately is what separates the work that we do from everything else that's being done in the nonprofit strategic planning space.
When did you know that your nonprofit was going to actually make a massive impact? Like when you were kind of growing it, like when did you realize, oh crap, like this is something, like we're going to be able to, like, it's not like a fever, you're a pastor doing this thing. Like when was that moment that you realized like, oh, this is a real thing?
Yeah, that's tough to answer because I was so focused on just being faithful with each day and saying, okay, let's meet the demands of today, that I probably wasn't cognizant of how fast it was growing. And people would say, wow, this is growing really fast. And I wasn't really hearing what they were saying. I started Life Remodeled in 2010. It was 2014 that I realized that this was an adventure that was monumental.
And that's when you made that decision to really pursue.
That is when. And one of the stories that was climactic was around fundraising. I hated fundraising at this time in my life because I felt like a used car salesman.
Sure.
And no disrespect to the used car salesman out there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I felt like I had to beg people for money, and it just felt so sleazy and so fake. And what changed my whole perspective was on this project, we were renovating a high school, an existing high school, Cody High School on the west side. And we asked them what they wanted, and they needed a lot of work to this building anyway. They didn't have a home football field. They played every game away for 6 seasons, including homecoming. And so we agreed we would do our best to help them build a football field. And they wanted a beautiful synthetic football field, which at the time cost $1.2 million. Today it would be about $2.5 million. All right. And we started fundraising for that. And we got to the point where we were $300,000 short if I were to sign the contract to move forward with that field. And we ended up feeling like God was calling us to do it. So we did it. We moved forward and took a massive risk. We would have been $300,000 in debt. We did not have the money to pay. We were in the middle of our 6-day project. And that week we had about 12,000 volunteers. This was 2014. And I got a phone call from a guy I'd never met halfway through the week. He said, hey, my name is Rob Walrich, Jr. My dad, Bob, he wants to come this Sunday and give you a check for $30,000. And I was just out of my mind at that point. And I said, I was making a joke that I thought was funny. I was like, well, Rob, we really need $300,000.
Could he add a zero on
that
or
exactly.
something? Yeah,
I thought that was funny. And he laughed. He's like, yeah, that's not going to happen. So it turns out I had spoken at their church, and his dad had heard and his mom about this project. So they came on Sunday. The reason they came Sunday is because we used to have a 6-day project where we worked on 6 days and we rested on the 7th. We stole that from another book, right?
Yeah.
And we would throw this big party. They show up right before I'm about to get on stage and meet Mayor Duggan, who had just become mayor for the first time. He talked at our event. And we had this giant hole in the ground where this football field was going to go. And we were still $300,000 short. And he comes up, and his wife, Bob and Jean Walrich, and he says, hey, can you give us a tour of the school? And I said, oh, yeah, absolutely. Right. But inside I was thinking, no, I do not have time for this.
Yeah, I have to go. There's an event.
I'm a little nervous about the speaking. I got to get focused, but you're going to give $30,000. Of course, I'll take you on a tour. I take him through a tour. He stops me halfway. He says, hey, do you still need that $300,000 for the football field? Now, I was so tired from the week. I wasn't even picking up on where this conversation was going. I was like, yes, sir. We're $300,000 in debt, yada, yada, yada. He looked at his wife, and he nods, and she nods back. And he said, now you said whoever gives that $300,000 gets to name it. And by this point, I realized what he was about to do. And I said, yes, sir, you can name it whatever you want. I'm thinking he's going to name it Walrich Field. His wife pulls out the checkbook. He starts to write the check for $300,000. He says, we want to name it Hope Field. And I absolutely lost it. And where my whole paradigm of fundraising shifted was I realized at that point, I don't need to beg anybody for anything. I don't need to be a used car salesman. I need to just find out who people are, what they're passionate about. And if their values align with our values, now we have something to offer them.
Well, it goes to the right people. It's finding even the right people, right seats, even fits in the donor mentality.
Sure.
Like finding those right donors that are wanting to row in the same direction that you're moving. So what you kind of figured out is like, You don't need to find the donors that are rowing against your current. You need to find the ones that are ready to jump in the boat and keep going with you.
Right. And that was part of, like, I guess the old approach was I was trying to convince everybody everywhere to become a donor instead of really just listening and developing relationships with people without a transactional expectation, but really more of a transformational relationship where if this is work that you're interested in, we could build it together rather than I just need your money.
Yeah.
You know, and honestly, I empathize with a nonprofit leader or a for-profit leader who's trying to get their bills paid. You know, the hustle and the grind is real. When you aren't able to make payroll that Friday or Monday or whatever, that's scary. That can tighten the screws, right? And yet, that brings out the worst in everybody. And so when we're able to really focus on having a healthy system in place and truly relating well to others, we find that the work becomes much more meaningful.
That's awesome, man. Shout out to that family too. I would have lost it. I almost lost it in the story.
It was unbelievable. And to this day, I still believe that's the largest single financial contribution this family has made. They make a lot of donations and a lot of smaller gifts.
Sure.
I mean, it's still big, but I think that was the largest single check. It definitely was at the time. I think it still might be today. What an incredible family.
Man.
And I've seen that story play out now multiple times.
Yeah.
And so that is when I realized this is a much bigger story than about me and a few people working really hard. This, again, is a calling. This is something that is a work of God, even though it's not a religious organization, that I need to give my focus to.
Yeah. What lessons have you learned through raising money that you wish you would have learned when you first started? Because I think you mentioned a little bit about finding the right donor, but how do you do that?
Yeah.
Like, how do you get in those seats? How do you get in that room with those right people? Like, for me, I'll give you a very clear scenario right now. I'm a for-profit company, so it's not exactly the one-to-one analogy, but we're raising money for a studio build in Troy right now. I have one company very actively looking at it, but they want equity in my company. Okay.
Shark Tank.
Yes. And we put the pitch together, they have it, and they're going to let us know by Friday if they're moving forward. Okay. Right?
Hope it works out. If it's the right
fit. How would you, if you were me, trying to raise money for studios or raise money for anything, like, what's that first call look like? Like, where do you even start looking for the right people to even ask for donations or write-offs or naming rights, or like, where do you even start?
Okay, well, let's separate the discussion into two different categories, and then we'll separate it into other categories.
Subcategories under those? Okay.
Because raising philanthropic capital is
different.
Completely different than selling a product or service or seeking a financial investment that has financial return.
Sure.
Okay, so I'll start on the donation side, which is where I'm most familiar. And one of the lessons that I've learned along the way is that people give to people. Someone can have the best idea in the world for a nonprofit, but if they don't have social capital and significant trust and relationships with people who have the means to fund that work, that idea is not going to take off. On the other hand, if someone has tremendous social capital and an idea that's not really that great and they're not delivering on results, they'll probably still get a lot of money early on. But eventually that money will dry up because donors, they
see trends,
impact. Yeah. They want to see real measurable impact, right? And so it's a combination of both. It's a combination of doing great work and partnering with remarkable, generous people along the way. And that happens when you realize people give to people. And so nobody wants to be treated like an ATM. Nobody wants to be used for their money. And I spend most of my time financially fundraising with individuals who write very large checks, right? So $10,000, $50,000, $100, $1 million checks, right? And that type of donor is someone who accumulated wealth while making very wise decisions and also learning from very poor decisions along the way. That person would also be someone who literally gets asked for money every single day by multitudes of organizations, many of them great organizations with great causes. They are not walking around saying, I can't wait to meet a new nonprofit leader today so that I can give more money
to someone else. Yeah.
People who are giving at that levels are often very generous and already giving significantly. Now, there are plenty of people that have that kind of money and they're not giving that significantly. I typically work with individuals who are already very generous, right? And it is the approach is one that has to be and must be relational at every stage, and that doesn't guarantee anything. And so much of fundraising is realizing I'm out to develop relationships and find out who people are, find out what they're passionate about. If our passions align, then I have something to offer them. Yeah. And if they don't, I don't. I got to stop. And usually I refer them to someone else or some other cause once I find out what they're passionate about, if it's not a good fit. And you honor that and you move on. And again, this is where it kind of gets to the business sector as well, because the old school model of selling is always be closing. Always, the Glengarry Glen Ross, right? Like the sell, no matter if someone needs it or even if they want it, like just close the sale. And even that kind of business, thank God, that's almost disappeared because people have realized that is extremely short-sighted business that may get you a few bucks early on, but you will dry up. That same approach happens in the nonprofit world when people beg for money, like, oh, please help these poor kids. And first of all, that's a deficit mindset of saying these poor kids. Instead, real generosity is unleashed when we inspire people toward a vision of human potential and connect people with stories, opportunities. And so data is important. And where I'm going with this is most philanthropic decisions are really made emotionally, even though most philanthropists would absolutely want to see the numbers, would want to see your pro forma, your financials, your strategic plan of how this is going to be sustainable before they invest. And yet all of that is incredibly important. And stories and emotional connection, to me, it doesn't in any way undercut or undersell philanthropy. It just makes it more beautiful because philanthropy is such a human endeavor. It is so much about connectedness of people with one another. And so if I were to take that into the business world, I would say the differences are significant because business transactions are transactional. You are buying something.
Yeah.
If it's an investment, I'm buying a return on my investment, right? I am not giving you this money thinking, well, I hope it works out, right? I'm going to see if you got the goods, and you may or may not be someone I really want to hang out with, but if you can deliver the goods, I'll probably invest.
Yep.
Right? I'm not thinking as much about the relational side, but it is those business leaders who do prioritize relationship above all that have the most healthy success in my experience. And that's what sets them apart from so many others. And also, again, where I can't stand that always be closing mentality is, I'll talk about business for a minute, is there's a lot of deals that we need to walk away from. There's a lot of customers that want to buy products or services that we shouldn't sell it to them because they're not our ideal customer, right? And they're just going to find something wrong with it. And may have made the sale, but we are going to cause brand damage. And there's investments we need to run from, right? I have no idea the numbers on the investment you're looking at. But I would say, again, the principle of who is more important than how.
Yep.
And genuinely valuing the who in front of you more for who they are as a human being than what they can do for you.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I think anyone in the nonprofit space should definitely call you when it comes to advice and and your knowledge exudes
Please don't,
out.
everyone.
Yeah.
Just call me though. Let's
all at once. Immediately.
I would love for them to read the book and now
Yeah.
books that I have spent
Then-
many hours, and then call Next Level Nonprofit, and I would love to connect.
So I'm going to
them
give your phone number
with
in the
one of our
description. Your cell phone will be in the description of this video.
Okay, all right. I gotta change. I gotta get a burner phone, and all
you
right.
did show up to my house today accidentally, so that was exciting.
Yeah,
You're doing
that was an
people.
accident.
But
I could give out your address if you give out my
so I
phone
guess
number.
we're holding each other hostage with information now. And I think you're right. I think it's been when it comes to like raising funds or investments or like that's been a new thing for me. I've never done it before. Obviously I'm raising it for like a for-profit side, but
Which is remarkable.
It's new. It's a new thing to be like, hey, I have
It's a big deal.
30 grand build. I would like that I don't have the immediate capital for.
Okay.
That I'm looking for. So it's been a stretching thing. It's been exciting.
For sure.
I'm learning a ton through that. And so I'll keep you posted on how that goes. But it's been a fun journey. And I'm also learning that like, I don't know if you've realized this at all, like organizations, donors, people, they need to give their money away in some capacity. I'm sure you're saying like a lot of them will like have money that they have it to give away to someone. And the question is who?
Yeah, but they're
Like-
not sitting around wondering.
Like when, they have
I need
millions
to find
of people.
more. They have
people,
causes.
yeah.
Most of them.
Well, I think that's
right?
my point. Like,
Yeah.
they have to find the people they want to work with. It's not just like,
Yes.
I'm going to give all this money away, but they do have the funds there to give away. It's just who is the right person.
Right. And just to riff off your $30,000 example, I've been there where raising the first $10,000 was as big as raising $1 million. It was as ethereal or
Because when you've never done it
impossible.
before, it's like, I don't even know where to start.
And I would liken it to the first marathon I ever ran where I'm not a long distance runner. Some buddies talked me into doing it. And the first time I ran 3 miles was like, death defying. And then that became easy. And the first time I hit the 7 mile mark, and then the 10 mile, then the half marathon, then you're in the 20, and then you're in the 26.2, right? And there was literally a friend of mine who was over 300 pounds that completed this marathon. And because it's about putting in the time, and then it's developing the skill set, right? And so where it's similar to fundraising or in capital raising is almost no one's going to just start something and then get a 6 or 7 figure check.
Yeah.
That is extremely rare unless your parents have money, right? Which I don't come from that kind of wealth.
Either. My dad was a Christian school principal. So.
My parents were school teachers and wonderful human beings that I'm grateful for my upbringing, but I didn't start off with a pile of cash, right? And so you don't come out of the gate and raise $30,000 checks, even 5-figure, 6-figure, 7-figure. You build that up through trust and then delivering on that trust. When you get that $30,000 loan and you complete that construction project, which by the way is no small feat, right? And then you learn what you learn. You're going to learn a lot from this.
Yeah.
The next bank is going to be willing to give you 75 or maybe even 100, right?
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. I'm not saying that's what you want,
right?
But he or she who is faithful with little will be given money.
It's a stepping process. And like for me, like this is the third business that I've been blessed to start. I've learned a bunch from starting in insurance sales. You want to talk about used car sales in the field.
Yeah.
That's
even better.
I know. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's great. Selling. I mean, but the nice thing with that, it was B2B. So I just but 100 businesses on foot every day.
Wow.
For a summer. Wow. Built the book. Supplemental insurance, not even real insurance, just the supplemental stuff. So that's what I cut my teeth on that in 2018. And then we started a video editing company and learned a ton. Then we exited that. And then now we're starting this podcast management company. It's been great.
Okay. Congratulations.
And so, and I've failed a ton.
Yeah.
And
failing forward.
Yeah. And I've learned a ton. And, if you would have asked me, like, because 2 years ago, I was like, I'm grateful for the job I have with insurance, but it's not my forever, And so now you fast forward in 2026 of me leading 3-and-3 Media Company and having real clientele, and it's crazy. Like, because sometimes you just have to take the foot forward and the step forward, even if you don't really know where it's going.
A lot of times.
Yeah.
More times than most of us are comfortable doing.
Yeah. And and it's not fun, but you learn a lot. And that's the thing, you learn a ton and you meet a lot of cool people.
Yeah.
Hey guys, Dillon here, post podcast with Chris. Sorry to interrupt the middle of the podcast, but we had some issues with some of the audio. And so I had to just do this quick PSA and thank you guys for watching this episode of the Dillon England Show. I really appreciate it a lot. I would encourage you guys to go check out Chris's book, Next Level Nonprofit. The link is in the description below. And thank you again for watching this episode of the Dillon England Show. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks.